This week, Batman Begins. Or does he? Find out now.
That's good.
I do. Yeah, number of ways I could take this, I guess. Jingle bells, Batman smells, Robin laid an egg, the Batmobile broke its wheel, and the Joker got away.
I think I did that for Batman 89.
I think he did that for Batman 89, but I delivered it in a kind of serial killer monotone.
Yes.
Thus making it original content, and that's unassailable. Hello, welcome back to Val Verde Broadcasting. I am Planes Richard Jackson, and this is Planes Duncan Casey. That probably doesn't add up to the length of the animation, so I'm just going to make them go off at the same time.
Fair enough.
In a spectacle spectacular of fireworks and such. Owing to a recent trend in things we've done about Batman performing quite well, we've cynically decided to cash in and continue discussing all things Batman, particularly in the week that's seen the release of Robert Pattinson in the suit in a camera test.
Sort of, in a dark room.
Yes.
Apparently, developing photos as Batman.
Yes, that's
kind of what it looks
the
like.
only explanation I've got.
So,
This one's overexposed.
by the way, now you're aware of digital photography.
I prefer 35mm. It's more tactile, Alfred. I don't know how he will sound.
No.
Hello, I'm Batman. That's
Yeah.
my voice for everything.
And it's Andy Serkis, of course, not. Okay.
Oh, is it? Is it
Yeah,
Alfred?
it's Alfred, yeah.
Tells you I bloody know. It should have been Pierce Brosnan, but whatever.
There's, in this weird universe where like everyone who does Marvel and everyone who does DC just, it's like, because we can't possibly employ someone new.
Anyway, 2005's Batman Begins, directed by Christophe Nolan. So yeah, this was there's a lot to discuss here because this was the supposed back to basics for Batman, which it kind of was. And these days, particularly for the young ones here, it's easy to forget that you didn't just reboot stuff.
Modern cinema owes an awful lot to this film, I think.
I think the approach of, because 2005, when this came out, we hadn't had any Batman for 7 years. And in that time, it was viewed as just it was like, well, I guess we'll never have any Batman films ever again. Like, there was nothing like...
They weren't on a schedule like a Bond film, though often that we've talked about the kind of odd alignment of James Bond and Batman in a weird way, but they weren't on a sort of schedule. They'd kind of gone off the Batman Forever was a huge success. Batman and Robin was obviously...
Batman and Robin was so poisonous as well. It was just like, well, that ruined it. There won't be any more.
Yeah.
And it felt like that. It really felt like that for ages. Like there won't be any more Batman. To the degree that when, I think it was for the first Scooby-Doo, they did that Batman fake out in the trailer, do you remember?
Oh, vaguely, yeah.
They did a camera going around a kind of Wayne Manor type thing, bats everywhere. It had the Warner's logo. I think they might have even used the Tim Burton music, I can't remember. And then it had the silhouette of Scooby. As I but even then, watching that, I was like, well, it's not Batman because no one makes Batman.
Yeah.
And then at this point, I'd already become a fan of Christopher Nolan when Memento and Insomnia, I'd both seen. I really like both of them. So when they said that, that guy's going to do a Batman film, I was totally into it. I was like, yeah, this sounds great. I was 22. So at that point in life, I was incredibly mature, which meant I liked things where people were sweary and serious and there were no superpowers because that's what grown-ups that are mature like. Yeah. So when they were like, it's a back to basics, because I was very much kind of like, fuck those old ones. I still sort of am, but fuck those old ones and this is all going to be serious. I just read Dark Knight Returns, which is actually fairly camp if you look at it now, and Batman Year One, Long Halloween, Dark Victory. And those last three are the ones from which this film really pulls. So I was very, very excited to get this version of Batman. All the cast, seeing Gary Oldman's going to be Jim Gordon, and he looked like the Year One Jim Gordon. All that stuff I found very, very exciting. And I was not disappointed by this film. I really, really loved it.
I would summarise my my feelings on Batman Begins thusly that it is, to date, the only film I've been to see at the cinema twice in one day. And I saw it 3 times overall in the cinema. And I had the best time watching this film. And it is, I think, It is, to me, it's the definitive Batman film. It really is. And yeah, I mean, the history leading up to it is funny how prequel was so much in the lexicon at the time. So we'd just been taught by George Lucas
and
what a prequel
people
was.
couldn't get their heads around the fact that this was a new thing.
And they're like, but how can he have the Joker card at the end? Because Joker killed his parents. It's like, you just saw a film where that didn't happen.
And it's completely, oh God. It's like, it's completely different in every way.
Yeah.
Like, what's confusing you? Like, all that, well, that's not included in the film, it's happened on a different day. It's like a completely different everything. It's like, well, it doesn't add up, it's not supposed to. But it's really funny because that just wasn't done. Because even Bond, Bond essentially got a soft reboot every few years, but it always maintained continuity with itself, like in a kind of crazy, inconsistent way. But the cast carried open, it referenced past events.
We were all supposed to just kind of go, I think all that happened in the past, but maybe slightly sooner with that guy instead.
Instead of that guy,
it's kind of like, well...
You would just sort it was almost an elephant in the room, so it's not really discussion, you just have to go along with it.
Yeah, it's just kind of help us out, mate.
You do us a favour. And the whole idea of just rebooting something, having a new take, was just sort of like, the original one that had been done was so set in stone that you just didn't do it again. Which is mad, because remakes have existed forever, but reboots, it seemed to be a really difficult thing to sort of sell people on.
Yeah.
For some reason.
I suppose when you'd had a series of films, maybe that's it. The idea that you then throw those out and start again was, I don't know.
And again, there was that 7-year dark zone of kind of like, well, it's a shame we can't do any more Batman ever. To us, the viewers, there'll be no more Batman.
I mean, I gather that the Warner Brothers attitude was, oh God. And then it was like, and I think that was they thought it was a poison chalice because
they didn't show a lot of confidence in this, did they? It felt like when the marketing was coming around.
And the background to begins, it was that Chris Nolan and his producer made like sets and used Airfix models to give them examples what the Batmobile or the Tumbler would look like and all that kind of. And that's all on the DVD and all the behind the scenes stuff. But they literally built a model version of Gotham and shot using, tried to give them an idea of what it was. And I know going in, Chris Nolan I think has this thing whenever he works with people. I don't know because I never worked with him. Tom, help me out. But he does a thing where he'll show the cast and the crew. He'll screen. Oh,
like mood pieces, because didn't they watch Blade Runner or something?
Exactly, yeah. So for this one, it was Blade Runner, and it was something else as well. But basically the idea was, and you can really see it. I mean, like when Batman's scrabbling up buildings in the rain and there's cables everywhere.
The general kind of industrial, because this Gotham is, because it's I think they use Kowloon Bay as kind of aerial shots and stuff for the Narrows, but there's a real sense of slum in this Gotham.
Because there's the wide when he comes back, so he sees it from his private jet as he's coming back with Alfred, and you see and there are wides generally of the city, and it is digitally stitched together, Chicago and various things.
And I know Croydon was used among this trilogy, so
I think that there's a place in Croydon that it's a hospital or something, but that's what Arkham was. But again, they added tons of stuff on it, like digitally and everything. But I mean, that is where Chris Nolan's a master of using CGI right. There's a CGI Batman in it, but you wouldn't know it.
Where's that? I didn't know that.
There's bits where he's like, I think it's when he jumps down the stairwell and puts his thing. They did it practically, but then they augmented it when he lands on the ground and stands up and walks off. That's a CGI Batman. But you wouldn't know it. And there's lots of just making things look good. Just adding a fire escape there or a thing there, and it just makes it look it's definitively, I think more so than the other two films in the trilogy, this one really feels like it's recognizable in that it has human elements to it, but it's also its own city that you can't place anything, and I really love that about it. And the Narrows is the Narrows, and it's like it's just always raining and dark, and I just love the imagery. There's that bit where he goes up. I think it's when he sees the kid, but he's climbing up the thing and he's using his periscope or whatever, and the kid comes out and chats to him, and he's just hanging off. Like there's that great shot of him like just climbing up. It's when he goes into the apartment with all the things, and it's just. I was like, it's just like, I want to eat it. It's so good.
Yeah, me too. It had all that kind of stuff. What I really liked about it was how it wasn't just because what I wanted, because I was really clever and mature and grown up, is that I wanted a direct adaptation of Batman Year One.
Right.
It's kind of like, well, I'm not getting that, but I like the director, so I suppose I'll watch it because it's going to be cool. Yeah. What I got was a kind of really what I really like, so really nicely blended all those things together to tell its own story, rather than something that I just know the outcome of. There was new characters, because Rachel was like a totally original character and stuff like that, and all these things were kind of mixed in there. And it built things up, but it wasn't distracting. So it had there's a bit where in Batman Year One, remember, he sort of puts a scar on his face and goes out on the street and just gets his ass handed to him.
Yeah,
and then
done in the animated series, I think they did that.
Oh, they did a version of that. In this one, he goes out sort of dressed as a paramilitary sort of burglar. And he falls off the fire escape and stuff.
Well, I love that, because he's basically got the Nomex survival suit, right? That all he's done is sprayed it black and thought that'll do, and chucked on. And he's got I love that the grapple system goes with like a harness that's like got things over his shoulder, because I think that's part of, I'm sure that comes from like concept art for a Batman film from years ago, where he had like the belt wasn't just a belt, it went over his shoulders and like had a proper, so it's kind of got that, and he puts that on and he just goes out with a ski mask, and it's like, and I love that what that has is some beautiful stuff in it, like when he's trying to sort of co-op Gordon. And he's in his office, and you hear that click, like he's at gunpoint, and then you just got that little thing. He turns his head. There's a stapler.
Yeah,
and it's so beautiful. That's just so
because
much about.
He could have taken an empty gun to threaten him.
Yeah.
But he does. It's sort of like we talk about with Superman, like Superman just being kind of inveterately wholesome.
Yeah.
Like Batman is not that, but he's kind of anti-gun, so he sort of.
But it's also that thing of like that's a great Batman thing, is that like on the face of it he's one thing, but then when you see what like Gordon ultimately finds out, hang on, he held a stapler. He's just smarter than I am. He's smarter than everyone, but it's like. He isn't. You have to trust him, because on the face of it, he's this horrible, nasty-looking thing, and it's just. I love that about it. And then he just runs and jumps off the police thing and just smashes into a fire escape, and it's like, I love all that.
Well, the subtext. That's you've raised a good point, because something that I always really liked about this is kind of what's going on beneath the surface, and it's a really great sort of meditation on the nature of fear. Because it's like you say, like he has to present one thing, so like he doesn't want to actually risk hurting Gordon even by putting a fake gun to his head, so he uses a stapler. And then it's later on, it's not particularly subtle. The Scarecrow is a fear monster, essentially. And then it has their take on how that works and how people view Batman and how it's formed out of the encounter at the Narrows, because you see like kids and stuff, how they see him and there's fire coming out of his mouth.
Well, because they're all on the Scarecrow.
Because they're all but that's how they're going to remember it. It's like this when he flies over and like his eyes and his mouth are on fire. And when he has Scarecrow and he's that kind of
that
licorice gargoyle, and like the last few shots, his eyes seem to be melting out of the. So it's just horrible, and it's like that's cool, because you get to have your cake and eat it in a kind of slightly fantasy visual, but in actual fact it's on a kind of narcotic. Sort of.
Well, and it's also what does Batman look like to those on the fear toxin? I love that, sort of just throwing it around, and because he said, Bruce Wayne says when he's coming back to Gotham, he's like, I have to be incorruptible, I have to be elemental, I have to be all these things, and then you see that play out. And that's the uncorruptible side of it, is the whole, again, like staplers, not guns, and finding it's just ingenuity. And it's very simple. It doesn't require an awful lot. All that is a shot. It's an insert shot of a hand doing that with a stapler. But it's like, again, we the audience, I think, are generally behind our protagonist. He's revealing stuff to us as he goes on, and that is such a good place to put us, because I want to go. I don't want to go like, oh, when's he going to figure out that that's that and this is this, and it's like, and it's just such a great character study as well. What's done with. Like when his dad dies, the last thing he says to him is, don't be afraid. It's okay, don't be afraid. It's like, what is he? He's afraid the whole time. What's he running from? What are you, like Ra's al Ghul, when he finds him in the prison, is like, what are you running from? What are you afraid of? Like, what, and it's like, and then training with the League of Shadows, all that kind of stuff. I remember when I first saw it, things like when he opens the box at the end, when they're all doing that weird ninja stuff, and it's like, because he's been told to inhale the blue flower thing, and you don't know what that is, and then like bats start coming out of things, and you're like, oh, what, give over, like why would there be bats in the, and it's all that kind of thing, and then it's all, again, it's the film being ahead of you and being smarter than you, and you feeling like, oh, I'm in safe hands here, and that is what Batman should be, I think. It should always be that he's just you think he's doing something really wrong.
World's greatest detective.
Yeah.
And you really get that. I mean, there are definitely, the previous cycle of films do have Batman as detective, less and less. Because the first movie has him kind of cracking the poison pharmaceuticals thing.
Yeah.
It seems to be the case less and less as they go on. There's less, whereas this is it has a kind of procedural noir detective thing in it, and it actually has him figuring something out, and you go along with him, but you don't see everything. And it plays into their when they show you what the suit's made of, he's got the kind of directional marks in the ears and stuff like that, and all those little things that make you feel like he is the world's greatest detective. Because that's a big part of the character that's often forgotten.
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's unfortunately kind of forgotten by this series in a way.
Yeah. By the time of the third one,
I think you can make the case that with the Joker, and this is the mistake that the '89 film makes, I think, is that Batman trying to apply his detective ordered approach to things to a chaotic character that's when it all falls apart. And so I think you can give the Dark Knight a break for kind of being like, he does, because there's all the stuff of him analysing bullet fragments and stuff like that, which kind of feels perfunctory when it's like, actually you're dealing with a force of chaos here, like how can you win, and he kind of doesn't at the end, and that's kind of interesting. I think the third film will kind of, I'm not really sure.
I think the wheels come off by the time of the third one.
Yeah.
It ironically it's almost become what it was a reaction against, in that it's at that sort of silly, campy Batman and Robin, and it even has the same outcome for Bane, really, in that he's just someone's sort of henchman or whatever.
Yeah.
Really. Whereas this, I just love how tonally consistent this is, and I don't think we're very likely to see Christopher Nolan do another franchise film. I mean, I don't think he needs to. But you can tell by the third one, his heart wasn't in it anymore. And I think once you've been through that machine enough, you kind of probably get a bit worn out on it. And he can do whatever the fuck he wants now. Do whatever he likes, which is what he's been doing.
Yeah.
He's been doing his own thing now for quite some time since that series ended.
And I love it. I love what he's doing. And I want him to keep doing it. And I'm excited for Tenet and all that.
Yeah, same. He's never disappointed me. I've enjoyed everything he's done.
Well, Dark Knight Rises arguably...
Well, sorry, yes, apart from the thing I just said.
But again, it's a flaw. I give him a pass on it because actually it's a good film. It's just not thematically...
It's just not... I hate to say this, but it's good, but it's not good enough.
I guess so.
You know what I mean?
And he put the bar up there, so it's only his own bar that he's got to clear.
It's one of these, it's like better than most things.
Yeah.
But still...
And I understand it. Hey, look, you lost the person who made The Dark Knight. It was a major part of that. And wherever you were going to go with the third one had to be a part of it, because you set him up to be a part of it. So I get it. I mean, that must have thrown him into complete disarray.
Well, to have that where it's like, this is the ultimate kind of... The whole point is cliche to say it now, but the unstoppable force meets the immovable object. It's like, well, one of those two things is now gone.
Yeah.
So Bane?
Yeah, well, exactly. You can't have the same thesis. So no, I agree. But I think... I do think, in a way, Batman Begins becomes kind of an island. I mean, it's talked about as the Dark Knight trilogy, which is telling, because everyone calls it the Dark Knight, the Dark Knight, the Dark Knight, the Dark Knight. People even talk about the Dark Knight Rises and call it the Dark Knight. It's like it's this weird, like, that's what that is. So it's like Batman Begins feels this kind of tacked on thing. I think in the was it nomenclature or whatever you'd call it, that actually Batman Begins probably should have been called The Dark Knight.
Yeah, we've said this before, because it feels like I think it comes from a place of not having any confidence in it, because and like Warner's, when the first trailer came out for this film, they really played down the Batman stuff in it.
Yeah.
And it's not until like halfway through the trailer there's Batman stuff, and it just seemed like Batman was so poisonous. And at the time, so Nolan had done Memento, really well received, essentially sort of high-end indie movie. Then Insomnia, which was a remake, a really good remake, the lesser spotted good remake, and a great performance by Robin Williams. One of his great dramatic performances.
Yeah.
And that was kind of it. Both of which have done well, critically really well. Made money. And then he takes Batman, which was probably sat collecting dust because they didn't want to touch it.
Yeah.
And the whole thing leading up to it, I was quite jazzed for it, like I say, but it seemed as if they didn't want a lot to do with it. And then by the time Dark Knight rolls out, it's kind of like, look, Batman's great. You love Batman, don't you? It's like, cheers, Warners. Thanks very much.
Well, I think as well, no, I mean, look, to give them their dues, I think it shows that, because Warner Brothers could quite happily have not done it. I mean, I gather it probably had a cut budget, but either way, I mean, it was still a $100+ million movie.
Yeah, and it's a big, lavish thing.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, Christ, they even built a purpose-made vehicle for it. It's that's massive. But it does show confidence on their part to trust in his vision, which was that that I remember seeing all the stills of stuff when it was coming out, and I was like, that's the Batmobile, that's the Batsuit. Yeah. I didn't like the Batsuit because the things went like that and not like that. And it was just like...
And that's one of these things, because it does that in The Dark Knight Returns, they're kind of squared off like that, and it's a bit like, well, you've just done that because...
Yeah, but then actually the gauntlets are there to track
stopping things. Yeah. I was because I think a lot of people were kind of like, oh, it's just a black rubber suit again.
Yeah.
Because I was very sensible and clever and mature, I felt that it had to be the black and grey kind of cloth costume.
Yeah.
Which I still think we're yet to see done well in live action, and I think it can be done. So people like to bring up the Affleck one, but it still, to me, looks like a big pile of rubber. It's just the right colour scheme.
I like it, yeah. I like it in that, and it sort of has a cloth texture over it, but it's clearly supposed to be like Kevlar or something. It's still armour, but it's like, it does look like I like it, but I
don't hate it or anything, but
I think it does it, but it doesn't do it. You know, again, it's not its own thing, so it's kind of like we're never given enough of an explanation as to what it is. It's just the Batsuit.
Yeah.
I think, you know, looking at what we can see of Pattinson so far, is it's just another armoured suit. But this time the guns and the motor.
Yeah, it looks a bit like one of the Arkham ones. I like it. I like that collar thing. I think it looks cool. But it is just another Batsuit. It looks like they've gone kind of down a sort of slightly techie, because like by the third Arkham game, it's a proper borderline Iron Man shit. I think it looks cool. But when, some of the stuff in the build-up to this movie coming out, I was kind of like, well, I'm not sure about that. Another black suit, the Batmobile looks wacky. But again, I was kind of on board with the Batmobile because it was a bit... it's another Dark Knight Returns thing, because he has the fucking tank in the Dark Knight Returns. Which kind of gave me a little bit of a boner, because I was very clever and mature and sensible and grown up. But what this film does really well is put all of those things into context.
Yeah.
So the way it can... you accept these things in the way they're contextualised.
Well, that's what I was going... Yeah, because I think one thing that whoever it was doing the kind of Warner Brothers superhero press release stills got wrong, and they did this argument with Superman Returns as well. I remember the first image of Brandon Routh of Superman in Superman Returns. He was stood on, I think it must have been the set of the steps to the Daily Planet or something, but it wasn't, you couldn't see that it just looked like a library or something. And it looked like they just chucked him there, and it was really awkwardly staged. It didn't look quite right. It was overlit, so you were kind of like, it wasn't filmically lit. And I think it was the same with the Batman Begins things. They just used a bunch of costume test stills or something.
They look very stagey, set bounds, like,
and to sort of see it in context and to see it move and to see it, and if the fact that like the cape had that, it was flocking, wasn't it? That's what Lindy Hemming did the costume for it, and she did a thing where it's like parachute silk with hairs shot into it.
Right.
So it gives you the back of it's got that kind of animalistic fur type texture. And the difference with it was they used a very kind of matte rubber as opposed to the kind of shiny stuff. So it was quite...
I think it does
stealth.
look, it looks kind of stealthy and tactical and stuff. I think it's a damn sight better than... Because it's just, it's so fucking trite to bang on about bat nipples, but that is what this was supposed to react against.
Yes, yeah,
that's
true.
So I think for it to just, it was onto a winner by not being that. It is kind of like, this is gold instead of yellow and stuff, and it's all...
arguably though, it's like you spray painted the whole suit black rubber, and I gather he does that to mask its heat signature or something. That's what they come up with. It's not said in the film, but he sprays the whole thing out and puts a bat symbol on it, and it's like, right, but the yellow belt.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's all supposed to be black and tactical, then why don't you colour the belt? The belt. So the grapple is like you fire it's a gas-powered piton essentially that you then wrap around the thing in the middle of the belt, and that winds you up.
These are the things in this. Like, this is the thing with these. They make a line. Fox has a line about how a soldier's life wasn't worth the cost of the suit. But it's kind of like they have all these things where it's like, well, the thing is about these inventions is they're too brilliant, so no one can use them apart from you.
Yeah.
And it's like, you've got a flying tank thing, you've got a grapple gun, you've got the directional, all that stuff.
I think it's fine for this film, because I think leaning on it as a crutch, as the latter ones seem to do, and it's also like the R&D department is like Tony Stark's Jarvis in The Floor, where you can just summon up whatever you want. It's like, But especially come Rise, it's like, I put it all in one place behind this bookshelf, and it's like you go in there and it's this massive warehouse full of like flying things, and you're like, but in this, I like it because he sat there and he's just sat there collecting dust, and then Bruce Wayne turns up and he's like, spelunking, you know. I love that interplay.
That relationship's really cool.
Yeah.
I really the relationship between Fox and Wayne is really well handled and really well cast.
Yeah.
So I think I would say like all the cast in this is really, really strong. I mean, kind of Morgan Freeman as Fox, that's great.
Yeah.
Michael Caine as Alfred is great. Ra's al Ghul being played by Liam Neeson is great.
And
Ken Watanabe is fake out. Ra's al Ghul was really great.
Yeah.
Gary Oldman, you know, all these. I think they are great top level castings for those characters. If you put that character next to that name on a piece of paper, in every sense, I'm just going to go, great, that works really well. Cillian Murphy as the Scarecrow, I really, really liked. I thought he was great. It's someone I liked anyway, coming off the back of 20 Days Later, which I think we talked about in the commentary recently.
Yeah.
Him as Scarecrow, he does a great kind of creepy, slightly Joseph Mengele-ish sort of horror doctor.
Again, that's another thing I remember seeing in the trailer and thinking, oh God, he's hamming it up. And then when you see it in context, it's, oh no, he isn't. He's very...
Because they use that, it's the Batman thing, didn't they?
Batman, and it's just like, oh God.
Because that felt a little Joel Schumacher-y.
Yeah.
But the rest of it is kind of like, he does this great thing. Something that, a big part of Cillian Murphy's performance is, and he's someone I really rate, is he always clenches his jaw. He's always like clenching his jaw.
Yeah.
And he uses that to represent things going on under the surface. And he does that a fuck of a lot in this film. And he does it 20 Days Later as well.
I actually stole a scene from this for my very first show reel back in the day, nearly, 10 years ago, over 10 years ago now, that I shot, which was him and Falcone having that discussion where he's like, talking about bringing the drugs in or whatever. And he says, he goes, maybe money is, or what does he say? He goes, it's just a bit that I loved, because I think my favourite part of it is just that he goes, we're paying you for that. He's like, well, maybe, I'm not the one, you're not the one bringing in all the whatever. He's just like, we're paying you for that.
That's a great scene as well, because this film shows the transition, and it's what Batman Year One kind of started, and then they carry it over in Long Halloween. It's like it's a transition from traditional mob crime to the kind of wacky, crazy. So it's like the mob meets the League of Shadows, and he tries to muscle out the League of Shadows, and just like, no. Yeah. They shut that down.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a great part. It's an arc that runs through all three films really well. Is that idea of escalation and that idea of Batman. Is he part of that, or is he part of, what is he? Is he the catalyst for a lot of this shit?
It's the Pandora's box, isn't it? Yeah. When you start running around dressed up like that, this is what happens.
Yeah.
And the final scene with the Joker card sort of does that.
I will say this about something that's just occurred to me about the Lucius Fox Bruce Wayne relationship, that I find it, obviously by the end of this, there's a line in The Dark Knight where, he's got that machine that listens into everyone, and Lucius is like, this is wrong, and all that kind of thing, and blah, blah. And the line over the end when it's all blowing up and Lucius is walking out, is he says something about people have the right or whatever to have their faith rewarded. And I'm kind of like, but isn't that what happens at the end of Begins? Because he makes him the head of... He gets there, walk in and be like, didn't you get the memo to Rutger Hauer?
Of course, Rutger Hauer's in this.
Yeah, to the late, great Rutger Hauer, Granny Hauer.
Nan Blouse Hauer.
Yeah. Bless him. But who's brilliant in this.
Yeah, fantastic. Well. It's a great shit.
Well, again, a sort of shit that gets uprooted when he didn't think he just thought he was just going to sit there and run out the clock as the head of Wayne Enterprises.
These are the kind of things that I miss in the second one.
He's only really a shit because Bruce Wayne comes back. I mean, he's been a shit because he's been keeping Lucius Fox down there. And he's been sat on his pile of money, but he's not like nefarious with it.
Yeah, he's not Falcone or anything.
No.
But he's the counterpoint to that. It's not exactly the Dick Jones Clarence Boddicker relationship, but he is a shit. Yeah, enough. And it's not. And he doesn't get thrown into a volcano or anything. He loses his job. Yeah, which is an appropriate level of punishment for his level of shittery. Absolutely. It's not like sometimes in a film someone will act like that, then they get their eyes pecked out or something, and it feels really disproportionate. It's like that was just a shit boss. He didn't deserve to have his gizzards pulled out his arsehole or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, I just love the world of this film. I love that. And that, I think, is, as I've said before, has been, as much as I love The Dark Knight, it was that I didn't feel it paid off enough of what is set up in this, which is that, like, rain-sodden, just kind of really rich, the black, inky world that Batman exists in, and largely thanks to the fact that it was shot at Darlington down the road from here, which is now used an awful lot, which are 2 Zeppelin hangars that they've turned into sets. I believe they're using it for the Batman as well.
Oh, they are?
Yeah,
okay.
there's someone put out an aerial.
And Wayne Manor, but both the Wayne Manors, I'm pretty sure, are in Hertfordshire. Both, by which I mean the Tim Burton one in the.
One's near Oxford, I think.
Oh, is it? The Tim Burton one's Nebworth House, I'm pretty sure. So
right.
I guess this one must be the one what gets burned down.
Yes.
It's Wally Pfister cinematography for the whole trilogy. I mean, this
Wally Pfister. I hardly knew it. Sorry.
Where's Wally Pfister?
Where's Wally Pfister?
I quite like Transcendence. Come at me. Yeah, Wally Pfister cinematography. So these films have a look. Mm-hmm. This film is a good example of film whose kind of colour scheme goes from the film into the marketing. So this has quite a lot of the sort of high end of the Kelvin scale, that kind of very tungsten-y look to it. It's kind of quite warm colours whilst dealing with quite dark subject matter.
Yeah.
Whereas the second one is a bit kind of icier, and that was in the marketing and stuff.
Absolutely,
and so that has that kind of, and I like the kind of look of that. And there's lots of, there's a very much, and this is something that's kind of counterpoint to the Tim Burton Batman is. The Tim Burton Batman film often feels quite set-bound, and its cinematography, it's not claustrophobic, but things take place in smaller spaces. Whereas this has those huge vistas of the city, and that's the ones in the Tim Burton film are very art directory, mats. Whereas it's like digital mats and actual helicopter shots, actual skylines. Wayne Manor, at the very end of the Burnt Wayne Manor, you see what is in actual fact the British countryside. Yeah. Huge scale and scope to that.
And very much in the is it in the Dark Knight? Which is about it being in the Palisades or whatever, but it's very much sort of geographically puts you in the start of Rises. There's the camera kind of looks away from the city and shows you where Wayne Manor is kind of in relation to it, but it is definitely out of the city and kind of in the countryside. Yeah, like you say. What think ye? Of the kind of flashbacky structure that's like in the first act? A lot of Bruce's journey is told through flashback, isn't it? His childhood.
Yeah, the stuff in his childhood. Yeah, I like that. I mean, again, I think it's kind of as a device. The Tim Burton Batman films kind of eschewed the origin story structure. They do it in flashback as well, but it's fairly sparing. And his parents were killed. That's it. This is the full-on deep dive, and it actually does what Batman Year One didn't do, in that it shows him where he's actually been. Because Batman Year One opens with him taking the flight into Gotham after years. Right. Whereas this actually shows where he's been and what he's learned, and it ties him to the League of Shadows quite nicely, and it makes sense that he's a ninja. Yeah. It makes sense because they think about how Batman operates and stuff. Yeah. So yeah, I really like all of that, and I think, if the Robert Pattinson film has a ton of flashback origin narrative stuff, it's much like how I'm glad that Marvel Studios and Sony have not done Spider-Man's backstory again. Yeah. Because we don't need to see it, because we've seen it. So but at this point, it was worthwhile doing a Batman origin story because we hadn't really had it on film before. And it's like half the film as well. It's like a really long, but it's all engaging and interesting.
It's used very cleverly though to show his relationship with Rachel growing up, his relationship with Alfred, obviously growing up, him becoming his surrogate father, and his relationship with his mum and dad. More so his dad, but there's the Thomas Wayne stuff is very well done.
And how he has a false father figure as well in Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah,
because he's quite paternal to him.
Yeah.
But in actual fact, he's using him and he wants him as a thing.
I think as well, it's that thing of be careful who you choose as your father figure, or your mentor, I suppose. Yeah. But yes. What was it I very quickly wanted to touch on, because I know we're running out of time. Don't know. Oh, the Joe Chill thing. Again, this ties into why Joker killing his parents is a bad idea. Because A, it makes Joker 105, and B, it's like you rob him. The whole point is that crime killed his parents, and I think there's a line in the film about that. There's a line that's like, I think Rachel says to him, it's like, the mob didn't kill your parents, crime killed your parents, desperation killed your parents. Joe Chill is just supposed to be no one. And then he's robbed of revenge. It's like he is about to try and take revenge at one point, and it's that and Rachel says it to him that you're talking about revenge, not vengeance.
And she grounds him as well, because she's kind of appalled at what he's. Yeah. And I think we talked about this a bit on the commentary recently. Like, if he just rolls out and successfully kills Joe Chill, the story ends there. Bruce Wayne goes to jail. by having that opportunity for revenge snatched from him, it makes it kind of a sort of macro purpose, like a general concept of revenge. And it also teaches him, it leads him on the path to realise that guns aren't the way and all the rest of it.
Bale's performance as well, when he's getting ready for that court thing and he's sticking the gun in his thing, is so well observed, because he's like, he doesn't look like he wants to do it.
Yeah.
He's got that look
his
of
heart's not in it.
Yeah. He's
also, he has a dopey haircut from the 90s.
He does indeed. But there's a look on his face of like, I think I'm just doing this because I think I'm supposed to do this, but I don't really want, I don't know. It's just really, and again, economy of performance is enough there for you to kind of bring what you need into. But yes, I think that's such a great place to put him. And again, it is that thing of identifying in the film as well, where does Batman begin? Is it then?
Where does Batman begin?
There we go.
Goodbye.
Exactly.
I'd love to just cut there for the lols. I really would.
Yeah, well, fair enough. But that is kind of the point as well, is like identifying where that is, and maybe it isn't anywhere, or maybe it.
Yeah. I mean, and Bale's performance, I do think it is. It's casting him as Bruce Wayne, I think, is interesting on a number of levels. Because he's a really committed actor, and I think it showed a commitment to having someone quite serious in the role. Because Michael Keaton did a good job, but he was a comedian, and I think people's issues with that was because he was a comedian.
Yeah.
This was off the back of, The Machinist in this, I think The Machinist filmed after this, didn't it?
No.
Or was it before? Because he had to lose all the weight and then bulk up again.
Yeah, to gain it, yeah. But...
Yeah, so off the back of something such as The Machinist, which is a really great movie, but also he played millionaire douchebag guy in Shaft, and in America, obviously the big one is American Psycho. Yeah. So this is the kind of flip side of that. Instead of like evil rich young bloke, it's kind of saintly rich young bloke. So it's the flip side of that kind of thing, which he'd done twice. And particularly American Psycho is so far out there. I mean, Batman is, there's an argument that Batman's a psycho, and then the more realistic you make your Batman, the more psycho Batman seems. Because when Batman's going to space with Robin and his pet dog, it's like one thing, but when it's just a dude in a costume decking burglars...
Well, the more realistic... I mean, again, that Grant Morrison quote of saying, like, actually, Batman only makes sense if you see it as a child's promise to his future self.
Yeah.
That's one thing that isn't in this. It does... I think when you're being... I won't say po-faced, but kind of earnest with how you're setting up your Batman, and that everything has to be cobbled together logically. It's kind of like, why are you dressed as a Batman? The idea is to strike fear into that. It's like, not everyone's a bat...
A lot of that needs to be, because that's something they've retrofitted a lot. Because again, the Frank Miller approach was, the way he describes it in his kind of year one and stuff, is that the cape makes it look like some huge mass. Yeah. So people shoot at the mass instead of you,
right? And
things like that. Because I'm never completely convinced. They do it in this, and it's in year one. It's a bunch of stuff. It's like, we got the suspect to describe what he saw, and it's like, and it's like a 9 foot tall horror monster. It's like, come on. Like, what kind of dipshits is this guy beating up at night? Like, I get that it was, because the point is it's scary and it's...
Well, and it happens very quick. I mean, again, all the fights are shown, like he drops out of the sky, he just... And he's got that... I must mention that shot, and I know, sorry, we will get off this, but it's when he's at the dockyard, when he first appears, and the guy's like, Stakes! And he goes up to and he just goes to the container, and he goes, and it's just like, that is just like...
Batmaning.
Yeah.
That scene, because I remember a few people at the time were kind of like, it was all so quick, the action was really rubbish, it's like a Michael Bay film, you couldn't see what's going on. It's like, no, that's the point.
Yeah.
It's supposed to disorientate you, because like when he does the big circular fight thing, you're not supposed to know what's happening, because you're supposed to be part of the disorientation. It's something that the RoboCop film tried to do with like that muzzle flash gunfight scene. It tried to do the same thing, because that film tries so hard to be this film. Way too late as well. We're like 10 years after fact. But that does not do it well, whereas this has spent the whole time building up and telling you that his whole tactics are about theatrics, confusion and shock and awe. Spends the whole time telling you that, and then it does it, and it does it to you. It does it to them, and it does it to you. Whereas the RoboCop film goes like, that was cool, what about muzzle flashes? It doesn't. There's no point you told that RoboCop is a shadow.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Well, it's just divorced from context, isn't it? So it doesn't. Yeah.
I
will strike fear and.
The film takes about half of its running time getting you to Batman.
Yeah,
but it's not frustrating. And when you get Batman, it's this brilliantly cathartic thing.
Yeah,
but like, it's a brilliant cathartic thing, and the people that he's going after, are assholes. And he humiliates Falcone and stuff.
It rewards your investment, definitely, and it also it clips along once Batman appears. It's like you're thinking, oh god, are they going to come up with excuses to just crowbar Batman back in? And there's the only bit I'll say is when it's like the morning after, when Rachel comes and goes, it's your birthday, happy birthday, right, I've got to go because there's a problem, and he's like, and he goes back and immediately changes back in Batman, and it's like, oh, okay, but that's because you couldn't waste any more time with anything else. But I give it, it doesn't matter, and it's brilliantly done. And it's also because he's getting up at like 3 p.m. and stuff like that, so it's it's fair enough. So I just think it's a wonderfully put together film. I really do.
Yeah, it's set a high bar for superhero stuff, and I think at the moment there are a lot of sort of younger people coming through and seeing it, and either enjoying it or B going, I don't know what the fuss is about, and not seeing it in its context. And fair play to you if that's what you feel. Fair enough. I feel like perhaps it's something that came along at a certain time, and that time has now passed, and we're getting on for kind of 15 years now since it came out.
There's actually there's more Batman films between us and it than there was between it and Batman 89, which is weird, isn't it?
That's the world we live in now.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Batman, it begun. When did it begin? At some point within the 2 hours of that film. Oh! Did you click? Did you clickbait the click? Welcome to the internet. We are Val Verde Broadcasting. We are on YouTube, of course. We live stream games. We are on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We have a Patreon. We have an Amazon storefront. It's all in the links in the description. Like and comment and subscribe. We hope you enjoyed it. We have quite the back catalogue now. Really, rather a lot of episodes of reviews and commentaries and stuff, feature-length commentaries. People like those. You like those, don't you? So go check those out. That would be lovely. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you next time. Support your 7th or 8th favourite YouTube channel by buying crap, tat, junk, hogwash and filth at redbubble.com/people/Val Verde Shop.